before I tell you more, listen to that sound. This is Tenerife. This is the most intense part of the seismic swarm in the early morning of June 22nd. So this recording tells you what is going on. It has been filtered to 1.5 hertz, conducted by Juan Ramon Garcia Martel, has been filtered to avoid the background noise of low frequencies due to the swell, which is typical in ocean islands. We have a little bit of a situation here in Tenerife. Is this heading to the next La Palma way earlier than officials are saying? Because we have reports from local scientists that are concerning. And if we look at the numbers, it is interesting. Do we have a little bit of a Campi Flegrei situation here? It's tourist season, property values, you don't want to lift the alert level, you don't want to create panic. I mean, especially now, main tourist season, the voices are getting louder and the numbers are getting stranger. Tenerife, the volcanic alert is still green. That is the official message. But I'm showing you data during this video that will kind of make you think, whoa, believe me. So green means normal life, tourists continue, hotels continue, Teide National Park continues, no eruption warning, no public emergency. But look at the same official style volcano report. 1,242 earthquakes in 1 week. Magnitude 2, maximum magnitude 2.5. And before you say, well, look at Venezuela, 7.5, this is nothing. For a volcano, this is a completely different game. Seismic energy, 0.08 gigajoules. And right beside that number, that volcanic traffic light still says green. Despite the energy, the number of earthquakes. That is what you see behind me, that image. That graphic. That's the whole controversy, we can say, in one image. But I can show you more. The question is not whether Tenerife is erupting today. I'm not asking that question. The question is whether the risk is being communicated honestly enough, or whether the message is being kept somewhat, let's say, soft, because Tenerife is in tourist season. And I've been watching the recent developments for the last, let's say, 3 to 4 weeks, and I was thinking about making a video for you guys about it, but then I decided, it's a little bit concerning, but let's watch it a little longer, and I did. But now I think it's time to tell you about this. And from this moment on, now in this video, it's where the story gets a little bit uncomfortable, I have to say, because the official agencies are telling us the activity does not increase the eruption danger in the short or medium term. But there's independent volcano watchers that are on Tenerife. They're saying the system is no longer behaving like simple background noise. And I have to agree somewhat with that. They're saying the volcano is sending warning signals from below. And I think so. And one Spanish Volcano Watch author is going even further. He says the rock seal, the caprock layer that is keeping the lid on. We're talking about this in relation to Campi Flegrei in Naples a lot. The caprock layer, that is like the lid of the pressure cooker. Under Tenerife, yeah, it's still holding, sounds reassuring, but it also means that something's pressing against it, right? So I want to show you this energy graph. This chart does not show one huge earthquake like Venezuela style. By the way, I'm putting a video in the end screen that is kind of crazy, that shows you what happened during the Venezuela earthquake. You've never seen anything like this before. It's in the end screen. So this chart shows something more subtle, and in a volcanic system, I have to say, more uncomfortable. Dozens and dozens of small quakes underneath Tenerife, the island, the Spanish island, the Canary Island. Most of them tiny, yes, mostly around magnitude 0.5 to 2. What you see here, the red circles are the earthquakes. The line shows the cumulative seismic energy. So all earthquakes together, what is the energy? You see the line. And the start of the month, this month, the energy rises slowly, and near the end, it climbs faster. So that is also what many critics of the official version are focused on. Not the size of one quake, it's the pattern. The pattern of the quakes, guys, look at this. The pulse and the acceleration. So what this author that is heavily criticizing the current official status, he's looking at the swarm like pressure building inside a closed system. And the argument is simple. If pressure keeps rising below the island, the caprock layer, the rock above it, becomes the final barrier. And this is the seal, right? This is what he calls the seal, a cap, a locked lid, a barrier inside the volcano that is still keeping the deeper system trapped. And we know with volcanoes, well, the pressure can only build as long until it breaks, right? We've seen this in Iceland. That pressure is building up. They're expecting the next eruption. So as long as that seal holds, no eruption is visible, of course. But if it starts cracking, that's a game changer. The whole story changes immediately. So this graph does not prove that this will happen, does not predict an eruption either, but it does show why we should have a different look at Tenerife right now. Because the danger, again, it's not the magnitude. The danger is the whole swarm of earthquakes. And I want to show you this other image here. This is the official IGN earthquake map. But the red lines that you see there and the colored circles, this is what these local observers have added to show what they believe are possible alignments. So do not treat every red line as an official fault or something like this. But the earthquake cluster itself is real, and I thought this is a very interesting graphic. Most of the quakes, they sit around the volcanic heart of Tenerife, near the Villa Flor de Chasna, Guya de Izora, and the Las Cañadas Teide system. So multiple areas on the peak of Teide. Interesting part here, there's one highlighted quake that's roughly 23 kilometers deep, roughly 14 miles. Let's have a deeper look at this, because the deep activity fits the idea that the pressure is still below the island, not at the surface yet, right? And then there's another highlighted area event near La Guancha. It's much shallower, around 6 kilometers. That's only 3.7 miles. We have another one that appears at near La Orotava, around 18 kilometers depth, 11 miles deep. Depth is very, very important. It tells a very important story. I keep repeating that in my earthquake videos. That goes for subduction zones, for fault lines as well. And then we have offshore events between Tenerife and Gran Canaria. So this is why they don't see this as one random tremor. They see a volcanic island under stress. And I'm asking you, do you see that too? I think it is quite obvious. Let me know in the comments. But listen to the conclusion of that. Volcanic island under stress. We have a central caldera. We have the northern side. We have the northeast dorsal zone, the southern dorsal zone, and we have offshore structures. Again, this does not prove that magma is moving upwards right now. It's not the proof, but it does show that the alert level green, the word green, when we see this, feels too calm for many people, and the number of people that think this is too calm is increasing. So green sounds really like everything is normal, but this map here, really guys, it does not look normal. Also, if we look at a full day CCAN seismogram of June 28th, for example, this is the official seismic heartbeat from Tenerife on June 28th. Full day of recording. Each horizontal line is 1 hour. Those sharp spikes are seismic pulses. And we have local people and local observers saying something's off with the official reporting. They're either downgrading the magnitudes or placing the earthquakes somewhere else. I mean, that is allegedly. We have no proof for that, right? But those sharp spikes, they are seismic pulses. Frequency plot on the right shows when energy moved through the station. This is where, if you look at that, you need to understand something very important. This is not like a Hollywood movie style eruption signal. This is not lava that's rising up on camera, and this is also not a huge earthquake. But this is a restless volcanic system that is obviously what we see here, producing repeated pulses throughout the day. So that's exactly the kind of activity that creates, we can say, a communication problem. Officials can say, well, yeah, these are small events. And they're right. Yeah, they're small. But independent watchers can say, well, small does not mean meaningless. And they're also right. A volcano can change through small signals before anything dramatic happens. We've seen this in Iceland for several years now with these repeated eruptions. So I also want to show you this other image here because it's kind of adding to the story. A zoomed 1 hour signal. That makes it clearer what I just said. The arrows mark the pulses. So one of the signals lights up the frequency plot really like a vertical blade. This is not, we can say this is evidence. This is not rumor from social media or from someone. This is the station recording. Small signals, repeated signals under a volcanic island. This is why the official wording becomes so important, in my opinion. When officials say there's no increased short-term eruption danger, many people hear no danger, but define short-term, today, but maybe tomorrow, right? But that is not the same sentence, right? Not confirmed imminent eruption does not mean the system is asleep. No red alert does not mean no risk. No panic does not mean no preparation. And that is where I'm drawing the line to compare it with Campi Flegrei, and I think this is a powerful comparison. At Campi Flegrei, officials also have to speak, or they are speaking very carefully, and they're getting a lot of backlash from their own scientists, by the way. Of course, we know too much alarm is risky. It creates too much panic, too much calm on the other side, but also is destroying trust. So Tenerife may now be entering that same uncomfortable middle zone where the volcano is active enough to worry people, but maybe not active enough yet for officials to raise the alarm. And if you look at this other seismogram, the spectrogram from June 29th here, this is another IGN station record, official record. The left side shows the ground motion traces and the right side shows the frequency. You can see the pulses, but not, of course, a clear, strong, like continuous volcanic tremor, but like the devil's in the detail. Because if someone says, okay, this proves an eruption is imminent, that would go too far. It does not. But if someone says the island is completely quiet, that's also really wrong. I think the data sits in the middle right now. And the middle is where I have to say, volcanic crises become dangerous for public messaging. So what the critics are saying, they're saying, not saying Teide is erupting right now, but they're saying is Tenerife has already crossed the threshold for yellow. And we do think that's the same with Campi Flegrei. They should go to orange. But then they invented a new alert level. So they said, yeah, in order to not go to orange, in my opinion, they said yellow and dark yellow. So, and light orange and dark orange, right? So let's go to dark yellow, which would have been orange previously, right? So yellow does not mean, or would not mean evacuation here in Teide. Yellow would not mean eruption. Yellow would mean heightened vigilance. Pay attention, prepare communication, tell people the volcano is active, tell tourists and residents what signals the scientists are actually watching right now. No, but the island remains green right now, and this is where the suspicion starts, right? This is where people are thinking, that is strange. So it's a major tourist destination. Yellow alert, of course, would not close off the island, but it definitely would change the headlines, right? Tourists would start to ask questions. Hotels maybe would get nervous. They would complain to the official authorities, say, what are you doing? It's our livelihood, right? Travel companies, I imagine, would get nervous. And that's why people are asking the uncomfortable question right now. Is the alert still green because of science that says green? Or is it green because it's easier to manage? That's the real question. And again, let's discuss this in the comments. What do you think? I mean, of course, that does not prove a cover-up. I want to make that clear, but it's a fair question to ask, I think, especially when the same report can show more than 1,000 earthquakes in 1 week and still show a green traffic light, right? And if you look at that, look again at this image. This is the contradiction. 1,242 earthquakes, green. A dense cluster under the volcanic center, green. Gas and deformation panels not showing the final danger signs, green. Many earthquake swarms, many larger earthquake swarms already this year under Teide. So the gas and deformation indicators right now do not show the full pattern of an imminent eruption. I guess that's why officials are not calling this an official emergency. But what the critics are saying is waiting for the final warning signs may be too late for public trust. Because if that swarm suddenly becomes shallower, if the earthquakes become stronger, if deformation accelerates, if gas changes sharply, if tremor appears, the public will ask one thing. Why were we still told green? So green is now. Critics say yellow should happen because the swarm is anomalous. It is. Orange would come if the seal breaks and magma or pressurized fluids begin moving upwards with stronger, shallower earthquakes, more felt shaking, deformation, and gases. But that is getting close to shizzy hitting the fizzy, right? I mean, red would only come with like really clear pre-eruptive signs, but then it could be like, we have red now, and then poof, right? So with a red, you go to red if you see like a tremor and eruption window, possibly under 48 hours. So that explains the fear that many critics have right now. It's not the fear that Tenerife erupts while everyone is watching. It's the fear that Tenerife changes while everyone is basically being reassured with the green light. And the energy curve that we see here on this image, right? If you use the seismic energy curve to estimate when the seal could fail, the critics say at one point the curve pointed towards July 7th to July 10th. Then it shifted to July 11th to July 14th. But yeah, they do admit it's a weak forecast right now, and that's hard to forecast, and that is important. It's not a reliable eruption prediction. The system is way too complex for that, and the data is also still changing. And that swarm has also not followed a clear path, in my opinion. But the fact that people are even trying to calculate a failure window shows us how serious the concern has become for locals on Tenerife. Again, official side, no short-term or medium-term increase in eruption danger. Independent side says, volcano is reactivating and the public message is to come. We all know what happened on La Palma. I think it cannot be ignored. And if we look at the map with the cluster, the map shows us why. The activity is concentrated underneath the volcanic center. It's not limited to one perfect dot, but there are deeper events, there are nearby shallow events, there are signals, right? There's stress across the island. So we have to look at Tenerife as a connected volcanic system, not one single crater. Teide is the visible giant, but the real story is all over the island, below the island. We have heat, gas, pressurized fluids, cracking rock, deep earthquakes, a locked seal, and a green alert. That's a story. That's really similar with Campifligri. Only that Campifligri is even showing more signs of like, guys, shizzy good at the fizzy. And the alert level is still like, yeah, you know. I mean, you're watching my video. I have a Campifligri playlist on my channel start page. Check it out, because the recent videos and studies, it is concerning, I have to say. But let's have a look at these two images that I'm going to show you. It's basically the instruments pulsing. What's a takeaway from this? Well, we shouldn't fall into panic, right? Nothing is certain, but there's tension. Tenerife is not erupting right now. There's no confirmed imminent eruption, but it's not silent. The instruments are recording these pulses. The swarm has repeated. Hybrid events have increased in 2026. So the earthquake count, we have to make that clear, guys. I want to tell you, it became high enough to trigger a public debate. And really, I agree with that. And the argument now, it's not only simply seismology or geological, it's also political. And it's how much risk should people be told before the risk becomes obvious, in my opinion. So, because once the ground shakes strongly enough for tourists to feel it, the communication battle is already lost. I think you agree with that. Once the alert jumps from green straight to orange or even red, people will ask why yellow did not come earlier. And that's the same for Campifligri, by the way. Once the volcano, I have to say, forces their message, the officials can no longer control the story and the trust of the people. And this image here says it all, right? The green traffic light, that is so important. Green, it might be scientifically defensible today, but it's also the symbol of the controversy. Calm color on top of a restless volcano, right? A tourist island with a swarm underneath. Public message saying normal. Instruments are saying there is movement. My honest answer is, or opinion, let's say it that way, there is no proof that officials are hiding an eruption, but there's enough activity to ask whether the risk is being softened. I really think so. And the volcanic island in the middle of a tourist season, I think that question will not go away that quickly. Okay, of course, if the swarm comes down, if Teide comes down, the officials will say, yeah, we're right. But if the swarm rises again, if the quakes climb upwards, if the gases change, if the ground starts moving faster, then Tenerife will face a much harder question, right? Let me know. What do you think? But guys, watch this video in the end screen. What you will see there is insane. I promise you. And I'm showing you not only that Venezuela video that you will have to see what happens to the people and what happens in the background. But I'll show you some other comparisons as well. Videos you've never seen before on camera. Click here. I see you in a second. Bye-bye.